Poverty is not a lack of money. It is a mind trained, long before you earned a single paycheck, to flinch at the exact moment wealth requires you to stay calm. You have spent years fighting the wrong enemy, and the real one has been sitting quietly inside your own decision-making the entire time. You have been told that wealth is a matter of income, luck, or timing. That story is comforting because it removes responsibility from the equation. It lets you believe that if the numbers had simply landed differently, you would already be somewhere else. But income is not a mindset. Luck is not a strategy. And the people quietly building leverage around you are not doing anything you couldn't do. They are simply not doing the things you don't notice yourself doing. Machiavelli wrote that men are more easily kept in line through fear of losing what they have than through hope of gaining what they don't. That single observation explains more about the psychology of money than most financial advice ever will. Because scarcity does not just shape your bank balance, it shapes your instincts. It teaches you to protect, to hesitate, to hoard energy you should be investing. And the wealthy did not escape this pattern by earning more. They escaped it by rewiring what their nervous system considers dangerous. None of this is theory. Behavioral economists have spent decades studying why intelligent, capable people make the same self-limiting decisions under financial pressure, regardless of how much they earn. Give two people identical opportunities and identical information, and one will still hesitate while the other moves, not because one is smarter, but because one of them has spent years training their mind to treat risk as danger rather than as data. The pattern isn't about capability. It's about the mental architecture sitting underneath every decision you make with money, usually built before you were old enough to question it, reinforced by every year you weren't paying attention to it. Here is where it gets uncomfortable. Call the first pattern the comfort tax. You have built a life engineered around avoiding discomfort, the difficult conversation, the risky ask, the uncertain bet on yourself. It feels like self-protection. It feels responsible. But comfort has a price, and you have been paying it quietly for years, in opportunities you talked yourself out of before anyone else even saw them. Wealth was never built by people who felt calm the entire way there. It was built by people who learned to act while afraid, instead of waiting for the fear to leave first, because they understood that comfort and growth cannot occupy the same room at the same time. And every year spent choosing comfort was a year quietly voted against the future they claimed to want. The conversation you are avoiding right now is not difficult because it's dangerous. It's difficult because it's necessary, and some part of you has known that for a while. Then there is the approval ledger. You have spent years calibrating decisions around what others would think, the job you didn't leave, the price you didn't ask for, the version of yourself you kept small so no one would accuse you of reaching too high. This costs you more than money. It costs you originality, the one asset that cannot be copied, and it costs you the ideas you quietly killed before anyone could judge them, which is a loss you were never able to grieve because you never let anyone see it existed. Leverage, not lickability, is what the wealthy have been quietly optimizing for while everyone else was busy managing perception. And the strange part is this: most of the people you've been performing for are too consumed by their own approval ledger to be watching you at all. Next comes the certainty trap. You wait for guarantees before you move, the safe entry point, the proven formula, the moment when risk disappears entirely. It never comes, because certainty was never available to anyone who built something meaningful. Machiavelli believed fortune rewards the bold over the cautious, that hesitation invites the very ruin it was meant to avoid. The wealthy do not wait to feel certain. They build tolerance for ambiguity the way an athlete builds tolerance for pain, understanding that the imperfect decision made early beats the perfect decision made too late. There is a green light you have been waiting for. It was never going to appear because it was never a traffic signal. It was an excuse dressed as caution. This is where most people assume they simply need more discipline. That assumption is the trap itself. Discipline was never the missing ingredient because you are not lacking willpower. You have been using enormous willpower for years, just aimed in the wrong direction, at holding a fragile identity together instead of building a durable one. Think about how much energy you have spent this year defending decisions you privately doubted, staying consistent with a version of yourself you no longer believe in, simply because changing course felt like admitting failure. That is not weakness. That is discipline, fully intact, pointed at the wrong target for years. The problem isn't that you're weak. It's that you've been strong in service of the wrong story, and no amount of additional effort fixes a direction problem. You do not need to try harder. You need to ask honestly what exactly it is you've been trying so hard to protect. The fourth pattern is identity debt. You have spent money, energy, and time defending a version of yourself that no longer fits. The professional who can't admit the plan isn't working. The provider who can't ask for help. The achiever who can't be seen starting over. Identity debt compounds quietly, and unlike financial debt, no one sends you a statement. You simply feel a little heavier each year, without ever locating the source. What separates the wealthy here is not confidence. It is a willingness to discard an outdated self the moment it stops serving them, without waiting for permission or explanation, without needing the story of who they used to be to make sense to anyone but them. You are still financing a self-image you privately stopped believing in months ago, and the interest on that debt is every decision you've made to protect it since. The final pattern is the invisibility reflex. You have learned to stay small, to avoid being seen making a claim, asking for more, or standing behind an idea in public. It feels like humility. It is actually fear wearing humility's clothing. Visibility is uncomfortable because it exposes you to judgment, but judgment was never the real threat. Irrelevance is, and irrelevance doesn't announce itself. It simply arrives as silence, the offer that never comes, the introduction that never happens, the room you were never invited into because no one remembered you were in the building. Being seen, even imperfectly, has always been a prerequisite for being chosen, and the wealthy understood this long before they had anything worth showing. An opportunity has already passed you by this year, simply because you weren't visible enough to be considered for it. You will never know which one. Machiavelli's Fox and Lion still explain modern power better than any finance book. The lion cannot detect traps. The fox cannot fend off wolves. You need both instincts, the cunning to see the trap forming and the strength to move once you see it. Most people only ever develop one. You have been avoiding the other and calling it modesty. None of these 5 patterns are about money. They were never about money. They are about the architecture of fear sitting quietly underneath every financial decision you have ever made, disguised as caution, humility, patience, and responsibility. You didn't choose this architecture, but you are the only one who can dismantle it. If you recognized even one of these patterns in the last few minutes, do not look away from it. Sit with which one is running your life right now today in a decision you are avoiding. Notice how quickly your mind reached for a justification the moment you recognized yourself in one of these. That reflex is the pattern defending itself, and it will keep defending itself long after this video ends, unless you decide, deliberately, to stop negotiating with it. This channel is built for people who are done being underestimated by their own conditioning, who understand that the identity shift comes before the financial one, never after. If that's who you are, this is where you belong. Subscribe not because I asked you to, but because you already know you're not finished becoming this version of yourself. You will not remember most of what was said here today. But you will remember this. The poor and the rich are separated by the same 5 decisions, made differently, on ordinary days no one else was watching. Wealth was never a reward for the brave. It was simply what remained once the fear stopped making the decisions for you.